Hello everybody and welcome along to PSGL season 31. We are here at round number 5 for the Japanese Grand Prix situated in Suzuka, and I'm sure we're going to be in for another cracker. My name is Jesper, one of your commentators throughout this evening's race, and joining me in the commentary box as per usual, we got Mr. Aidan Carter. Aidan, how you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Yeah, looking forward to round 5 of the championship now. It's been a really intriguing start to the season, to say the least, and we've seen so many different performers, so many people at the front of the field, and we head to a personal favourite of mine in terms of tracks to commentate on and race around in Suzuka. I'm super excited to see how these drivers get on tonight.
To be honest, I think we share the same passion, because I absolutely love this track to commentate and race on myself, and it's produced many great races in the past. I think I remember filling in for a race in a PSGL F1 before commentating on it, and it was absolutely brilliant. I can't remember who won that one, but I think that's where we last visited Japan. But enough about Japan for the time being. We may as well talk about what happened last week in Mexico City, where we saw Dan Urco take his second win of the season, and it puts him extendedly to the top of the standings. Asacombe adds another podium to his list. He's got 3 podiums this season, 2 podiums in a row, but didn't quite get enough to get second place. Brock got second place last week, his best result of the season and definitely his standard performance. He moves up to 4th in the standings, just behind Philip Valters in 3rd. Rowan in 5th position at the moment in the standings. Then it's Tom Robbo, Rudy, Louis, Orgiano, Jensen, Chiquita, Cazidel, Ray, Fabi, Mish, Marcados, Namaya, Fede, and then we have quite a few drivers of H Eagle and Vasilio yet to score. And looking at the attendance list so far, for the first time this season, all 20 full-time drivers are in the lobby, so we should be in for a very exciting race with all 20 drivers in this race.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting to see. I think it's fair to say holiday season's coming to a close now, isn't it? Everybody's back in time for the season now, which is nice to see. And yeah, it'd be great to get a full read now on everybody that's full-time in this championship and see what they're capable of. And yeah, looking at those championship standings at the moment, Janeko's really on a good run, isn't he? 2 wins in a row now, had a solid start to the season as well, picking up 2 solid point-scoring finishes in Austria and Miami. So he's on the up, whereas Philip Walters, who won the first round of the championship, is on the down a little bit. So a lot of fluctuation already, only 4 rounds in, and we're already seeing the dynamics in the championship shift that little bit.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit of a shame that Philip Valters hasn't got a win since round number 1, but anything can happen. We still got a long way in the season still to go, and Tom Robbo didn't have a good result last time out. After his podium in Belgium, he didn't quite get the podium in Mexico. He only got 1 point in Mexico as well, so was very unlucky as well. And Cazidel ended up getting a 5-second time penalty from the stewards due to an incident with Rudy, which we caught on stream, I believe. And it's fair to say it was definitely Cazidel's fault on that one, and the stewards agreed on it. So he got dropped down a few places. I think he was 5th or 4th, and then he got dropped down to 7th, which promoted quite a few drivers up a few positions. And well, Cazidel just really needs to work on his defensive moves, and hopefully he can't get avoided into the stewards again. That was the only report that was submitted to the stewards, which was required a time penalty. So at least it was a lot cleaner last week. Yeah,
it was a lot cleaner. It was I think it was fair to say it was a bit of a tame race, wasn't it, in the sense of things. It wasn't a boring one, but everybody was from the first 6 or 7 laps onwards, it was kind of a bit of a spread out field. But I think that's just the nature of Mexico City as a circuit. It is one of those tracks where you really have to be dialed into the circuit to get any sort of pace out of it. And yeah, because this was a bit of a shame, wasn't he? Because I believe he qualified on pole, if I'm not mistaken. He qualified on pole position for the first time this season. It was our 4th different pole sitter out of 4. But yeah, just a really bad start. And then in his desperation to recover from the bad start, he had a bit of a poor showing early on in the race in terms of driving standards, and that's of course, like you say, why he got that 5-second penalty. But it's still a good marker for the rest of the championship for McLaren. Of course, Ray debuted for the first time last time out in the other McLaren and had a really good first race in the top tier of PSGL as well. So even though it wasn't quite the result that they wanted in the end, especially for Cazidel, they're on the up, I would say, as a team McLaren are. So you've got to keep your eye out definitely for the 2 of them going forwards.
Yeah, so without further ado, we may as well head into our qualifying session, which is happening at the moment, and it is a dry session, believe it or not. And the first person that I was on board with is Rudy in the Alpine at the moment, currently sitting near near the top end of the standings as well. Now, Japan is an interesting circuit in terms of characteristics. You may say it has quite a few difficult overtaking opportunities, but I think a lot of people tend to make a lot of risks heading into this track, especially towards Spoon Curve. We see people go for a move there, and also the infamous 130R. And there's been 5 occasions around this very track where there was a tire decider as well. One I remember, of course, was Damon Hill back in '96. We saw Jack Villeneuve bin it, I believe it was turn number 1 near the Esser section, and that cost him the title, and Damon Hill won that as well. Obviously not a tire decider here today, but definitely a memorable track for many reasons, sometimes for the wrong reasons as well, where we saw the likes of Senna and Prost famously imploding each other, which was quite interesting. Hopefully we won't see many of that occasion at the moment. Most people on their outlaps now, actually. Hopefully we won't get the same issues as what we saw in F2, where it rained towards the end and not many people were able to get laps in. But at the moment, looking pretty dry so far, so hopefully this is no excuse for people to get their laps in.
Yeah, hopefully everybody, like you say, out there getting a lap in pretty much as quickly as they possibly can. They're all backing off in the final sector, and yeah, you say this track it's got a few difficult overtaking opportunities, but weirdly enough, I think in real life it has at least one of the top 5 highest average overtaking moves done in a race on track. It's actually very good for overtaking in real life, at least. So I think this track gets a bit of a hard rap in that it's apparently difficult to overtake, and when that's not the case, it seems. And it's like you say, it's got a really unique character to it. It's a very narrow track, it's very flowing, it's very undulating, there's a lot of camber to a lot of these corners, and it's a very bumpy track as well, so it's very difficult. It is probably the epitome of a driver's circuit, isn't it, Suzuka, which is I think why a lot of people love it and a few other people hate it. I'm riding on board with Philip Wouters at the moment. He is a bit further along on a lap, currently just heading through Spoon, and then he's going to head down towards 130R and the end of the second sector split. I think his teammate H. Eagle is the first person looking like they're going to be able to complete a lap in this session, followed by one of the Haas cars. I think that may be Oggiano. No, sorry, it's Rowan a bit further up the road. But through the second sector split then for Wouters, and then into this Casio triangle for the final chicane. H. Eagle were 28.7 then for the first time, but Rowan beats that by 0.3 of a second. Philip Wouters out of the final corner and crosses the line and goes in between the two of them on a 28.5.
Yes, indeed. Not a bad lap from him, but Rowan actually picked that with a 128.4. We'll see if anyone else can improve. We've got one of the quality merchants of this season, Brot, who just came up to the line in P7. Markados, who's back, who's had a up and down season, many a down season for him, really, in terms of results. Was in F3 last season and did a very good evaluation race, but hasn't really stepped up to the plate this season. And if he really wants to improve a bit more, he really needs to get some more point finishes and get involved in less crashes as well. So we've got Namaya up to the line in P2, which is a solid lap time from him as well. We scored some, I believe, some points last week as well, so he's looking to improve on his performance as well. Asacombe, don't forget, who's on a run of form in terms of podiums, yet to find that elusive win this season. Can today be the day? And just like normal tradition, he's on provisional pole earlier on in the session with a 128.385. He usually doesn't get it at the end of the session, but he usually tops it for at least some point during the session. All he's got to do is hold it for pretty much most of the session, and when it counts, at the end of the session.
Yeah, when it counts at the end of the session, like you say, he's not been able to do that so far this season, as the championship leader Denarco goes onto the front row alongside him on a 28.4. And yeah, it's bizarre to think that Asacombe's had 3 podiums in 4 races, but not really been close to that first win of the season, despite the pace that he has shown as well. And I'm not sure if I'm mistaken, but I don't think Asacombe actually has a pole yet this season, despite probably out of most of the drivers in this field spending the most time in a pole position in qualifying, because he spends probably the first 12 minutes of the session on pole and then gets pipped at the very end by somebody else. So yeah, it's a bit bizarre to say for Asacombe. He's had, in terms of pace-wise, has been so strong at the start of the season, but just hasn't quite been able to get that final 1% to get that first win of the season. But he is definitely a solid front runner to keep a lookout for the rest of the season. Nikita on a lap at the moment as well, back after missing the previous round. Had a solid race, a solid run the round before did Nikita, of course, in Belgium. It wasn't too bad of a race for Nikita. Only points finish of the season, got 8 points in that race. That's the only time the Williams driver has scored as he crosses the line, goes P8. So splits the 2 Alpines at the moment. And after a bit of a rough start to the season, I think Nikita's now just starting to find his form on this game.
Yeah, it does take a while, I think, for most of the drivers to find their form, because it is a brand new handling model. It's a new era of cars as well, and even with all drivers, it does take a while, even with the experienced drivers, even with the F1 esports drivers as well. So we may see people that may struggle to start with, but towards the end of the season, or maybe even the middle of the season, like Chiquita, may find their feet a little bit and maybe challenge towards the front of the field again. I think I've seen that in other leagues as well that I've either competed in or commentated in. People seem to be more successful at the end of the game cycle rather than the beginning, but sometimes that's just either their preference or it takes longer to get used to. As we've got more people on their outlaps, we've got Kazizzle, Tom and Rowan on outlaps at the moment. Kazizzle and Tom are the only two drivers, both from Team Jazoo, yet to set a competitive lap time. Misha's has set an unrepresentative lap time at the moment. A 1:31.1 is not quite good enough to get them near the front, but everyone else is just so close within a second of each other. We could see people dip into the 1:27s maybe, but 1:28s is definitely more likely. People need to find 2 temps ideally to get near that, as I think someone just moved out the way of Kaziddle there through one of his first proper laps. Let's see if he doesn't invalidate this time. This track is kind of hard to invalidate. I think one of the corners that you can invalidate is through the Degner curves, as he almost did that there as well. He was purple sector 1, but he seems to be struggling a little bit in sector 2, and you can also invalidate near the Casio triangle sort of area as well. I think those are the only 2 places you can invalidate, less than any other circuit, but that doesn't stop people from pushing the limits. This is the top tier on the PlayStation. They will be giving it everything they got and using every element of the track, because if they don't, then they're no longer a racing driver. So Kaziddle goes through spoon curb. I think Tom is just about to do the same just behind him as well, as there is a yellow flag somewhere which people moving out the way. They're all starting their outlaps at the moment, but let's see what Kaziddle could do. Got a penalty last week, but definitely wants to get rid of his penalties this week and wants to be near the front of the field once again. He's doing quite well this season already, near the front of the standings, but can he get in the top of qualifying? What can he do? A 1:28.474, and that puts him in P3. He did get pole this season, but hasn't converted it into a win. And there we go. Tom just pit everybody to the post with a 1:28.353. Well, it took a long time for Tom to get up there. Well, he eventually got it, but can he stay there for the rest of the session, though?
You have to see, I was riding on board with Tom. It was a very similar first 2 sectors between Kazizzle and Tom. They're only separated by about 0.03 of a second, but it's the final sector where Tom made the difference. I don't know if Kazizzle potentially was a little bit impeded by the Hassaf. I think that might have been Ogiano just in front of him on the road. I don't think it was more of a distraction, I would say, than anything else, but that did put Kazizzle off potentially in that final sector. I'm riding with the other Hass of Rowan, who's found a 10th already in the first sector of the lap, so this could put him towards the front of the timesheets if he can continue on this run for the rest of the lap as he heads up towards the second sector split. It's got to be a high 1:11 to be competitive, and he's nearly 2 tenths up now as Rowan, so he's finding a bit more time in that Hass, looking to get onto pole position. One of the Red Bulls up to the line. I think that's Marcador's actually just about to start a lap. Yes, it is. So it'll be Rowan will be the first to complete their second run in this qualifying session. Comes down the hill out of the Casio triangle and across the line, and it's a 3:35. He now goes to provisional pole by just under 200ths of a second. So good lap on the board there once again from Rowan, who started off the season really, really well in the first 2 rounds of the championship, but we haven't really seen much of him since then. So yeah, nice to see that he's right back at the front of the field.
Yeah, Rowan, of course, did miss last week's race as his teammate Ogiano picked into the post once again. What a 1:28.3. Has anyone got to beat that? We got a lot of traffic going through the final sector as Louis has cut the Casio triangle. As I was saying, I think he wasn't very happy with his lap, so he has aborted it as well. The 2 McLarens almost on the stern with Valtters improving to split the 2 McLarens into PAH. Eagle was on a lap, but believe he has aborted, so he's going to be going into the pits. We've got Fabi, who's currently sitting P15 at the moment in qualifying with a 1:28.8. He's looking to get out of that and maybe get into the 1:28.5s or 4s to get him inside the top 10. So Fabi then in the Red Bull, what can he do? Well, 1:28.6 stays in P14. He does improve on his lap time though. AlphaTauri, I believe, is either backed off his lap or about to start. No, it is Asacombe that's going into the pits. We've got, I think, it's hard to tell whether they're Williams or Alpines. It is a Williams. It is Chiquita who's starting off his lap. We've got a Red Bull of Marcados finishing off his lap. He's only 8/100ths quicker than his previous best P16. So not much improvement from some of the drivers, but I have to say, the 2 Hasses looking like they're the favourites at the moment, and Asacombe nowhere up there at the moment. So this is not the trend we are used to seeing right now.
No, it isn't. No, Asacombe on the board with him in that lap. Bit of a mistake in the middle part of the lap, unfortunately, and just wasn't able to find anything in the final part to improve. So dives into the pit lane and abandons that lap time then. Just seeing who else is on a lap. Denerco's already backed off their second run, I believe, by the looks of things. Yet his ERS is off. So Denerco's backed off their second run. Nemaya is going again on the same set of tyres, so has clearly made a mistake on their first run. I think it's the two Williams actually on the track that are the ones making the most improvement at the moment on their laps. Fusilio is half a second up, which would put him towards the bottom end of the top 10, which is much better than we have seen from Fusilio so far this season. Fusilio still no points on the board. It's only him and H Eagle left to score points for the full-time drivers in this championship. Fede goes 16th. Fusilio crosses the line, goes 12th. That's a bit more like it for Fusilio, a bit closer to the front. Lost a little bit of time in the final sector, but much more competitive than we have seen from him in previous races. His teammate Yakita is 3.5 tenths up by the end of the second sector, so Yakita here could be challenging potentially for the front of the grid if he can nail this final sector. Cops over the curb quite nicely at the Casio Triangle, and then down towards the start-finish line. Yakita goes provisional pole on a 28.2, first person into the .2s. Wow, that's a pretty surprising lap. I'm quite surprised to see Yakita at the front of the field that high up, and are we potentially staring at our 5th different pole sitter in 5 races?
Yeah, don't forget, we've had 4 different pole sitters this season. Obviously, Valter's got one in round number 1. We had Santeri round number 2. Obviously, Santeri has moved over to the PC side, so that is why he's no longer racing with us on the PS side. And round number 4, I can't remember who was polling round number 3. I know Kazizzo got one, and someone else got
Brock.
the other. It was Brock that got it in Belgium. That was it. I should have remembered, because Brock is a qualified merchant at the end of the day. Only seeing him P7 right now, though, but I know he's a man who likes to save his best laps to last, doesn't really want to show his true pace until then, because there'll be more pressure from the other drivers to do so at the moment. I'm not watching on board with Kaziddle's lap as he goes through the second deck net, and he is purple in set to 1, which hopefully remains true at the moment. He's looking quite more comfortable compared to his previous runs. He's got to find 2 gems to get into pole position, but it is easier said than done. There is little margin for error. We saw it in PCF1 on Wednesday evening. The gaps were so close between first and near the back of the grid, so I'm expecting it to be the same here as well, because some of these guys could be competing in the Challenger Series in F1 Esports very soon, in next year, the start of 2023, as Kazizzle heading towards 130R, the most powerful straight on this circuit, and can we see brave overtaking moves? We'll have to wait and see. So Kazizzle, what can he do in the quarter-final set? Not as comfortable as Chiquita there, as he's aboard his run. He's running out of fuel, so he's going to go in. I'm not surprised, because there's not that long to go until the end of the session. Rudido is going to go again. What lap time can he do? That slots him into P5. A more respectable time from the Alpine driver, but I believe that will be his last lap. Louis is about to start, well, he's just started his run, and he invalidated his last run, so I think that will be it for him. But apart from that, everyone else may have one more chance to get a lap in, and Asacombe, he's in the middle of one.
Yeah, he's running out of sequence of everybody else, so he's either going to have to complete this lap or dive into the pit lane and go again at the end. But he is a 10th up at the moment, but that's still, at the moment, not enough to take provisional pole in this session. He's going to have to find a little bit more in this final sector. His first sector time was quite comfortably, actually, the fastest we've seen so far. It was a flat, but he's dropped it on the curb, coming out the Casio Triangle, and has spun the car. He's going to have to get that car turned around and make sure he doesn't disqualify himself from the session. He's spun conveniently for him right in the entrance of the pit lane, so he can come straight back into the pit lane, go into a set of soft tyres, and maybe get out just in time for a final run. But we're seeing it yet again, aren't we? Asacombe starts off the session very well, but just can't complete the session with a good time. And he was on provisional pole the best part of 10 minutes ago. He's now down into 6th position, and he's under threat from a lot of people behind who we know can improve on their times. The likes of Kazizzle, Denerco and Brock spring to mind as well. So Asacombe has got to nail this final run if he stands any chance of starting at the front of the field, as everybody now is on an out lap, I believe. I think it's just Rudy and Louis coming back into the pit lane on in laps at the moment. I think Rudy and Louis' sessions may be over and done with, though. I don't think they're going to have enough time to get out for a final run.
Chiquita has just come out of the pit lane to start his out lap as well. He's a bit too close for comfort out there, but don't forget, out laps are a lot longer than normal laps as well. So unless he goes fully at it for most of this lap, then actually he will have time. Scrap that, as obviously the timing can be a bit delayed to what we see as a spectator to what they see as drivers. So 2 minutes left to go of the clock, calm before the storm. At this moment in time, as we said, a lot more people are going into the pits. Let us know your predictions in a chat, the time that you would expect to get pole as well, as we've had a random person who said Chiquita for pole with a 128.184, so he thinks Chiquita's going to get into the 128.1s, which is going to be absolutely interesting. I think we haven't had any more predictions so far, so get your predictions in. We want to know who your favourite driver is, who you're rooting for, as well as Misha's about to start his run. Rudy, though, is not going to start his run. He's retired in the pit lane, and I think Louis going to do the same. Yes, he is. So the final few moments of qualifying, will anybody able to stop the Williams driver? Will Asicone finally get his first pole position of the season? All the likes of Brock and Kazizel make it too.
Yeah, I'll have to see if we can get our first pole sitter of the season. I was riding on board with Jensen, was going to be the first person on a lap, but Jensen spun just before the start-finish line to start the run, so Jensen's already had to back off on his first run on this set of tyres and wait to go again. So H Eagle will be the first person, I believe, to complete their final run in this session. H Eagle slightly up in the first sector at the moment. Again, like I said earlier on, along with Fusilo, is the only driver not to have scored points, only of the full-time drivers not to have scored points so far this season. His teammate, of course, has a win on the board, so Alfa Romeo looking potentially at a manufacturer's run, so H Eagle's going to have to try and get some points on the board sooner rather than later as he heads through the second sector split. What is the time looking like? It's 11.9, which is pretty competitive, only a tenth and a half off, so we'll see what he can do in the final sector through the final couple of corners, then hops over the chicane quite nicely, uses fifth gear through there. That's a very high gear through the chicane, but it seems to work quite nicely for him as he runs up towards the line, and there's a 0.4 in the end, and H Eagle goes P8, so that is a good final run. But of course everybody else is now on laps, and Brock is going to be one of the next ones to complete. Has had a pole position already this season. Will he be able to nick it? No, not quite. A 28.297, it's the front row at the moment, but Brock is not going to get his second pole of the season.
No, we'll see if Kazizel could do exactly the same thing, but it's Rowan that gets a 128.254. We got an Alfa Romeo about to cross the line. It's not H Eagle, it was Valves, as he can only manage 12th position. There's yellow flags everywhere. We got Tom who's up to the line with a 128.2. We'll see if Asicome could do any better. I think Ascombe is a few 100s up, so he's not improving. Ogiano then goes fast. As many more people go quick. I believe Markados will be the next driver to cross the line. I did see someone spin into the gravel trap somewhere. Not quite sure who that is. Markados improves to 13th position. I think Chiquita's on a lap actually at the moment. He's going through the Casio triangle. He's 10 seconds down and he's going into the pit, so he's not going to get pole position. So whoever predicted Chiquita for pole position, not going to be enough. Denurko, our current championship leader, could only manage 5th position, so he's got a lot of work to do to get pole, as Kazizel is 128.1, the first man into the 128.1s right now. The only man that can beat them is Asicome. He's a few 100s up on his previous best, but not quite enough. But we did see Chiquita earlier on improve massively in the final sector, so it's still possible for Asicome to get his first pole position of the season. Will it be Asicome or will Kazizel make it a second pole position for him? We'll have to wait and see. No, Ascombe only a 128.3, which puts him in P8. And then we have the other Williams, could not improve, and he only improves to P17. So we have the first man in this tier to get a second pole position, and it is Kazizel there. So well done to Kazizel. I believe he got it last week in Mexico. So it's his second pole position in a row there. Would he convert it to a win this time?
Yeah, that's going to be the question now, isn't it? He didn't get the best of runs at the start of Mexico, but yeah, first repeat pole sitter of the season, 2 in a row as well. It's kind of spoiled our fun, unfortunately.
It does.
It kind of spoils the fun, doesn't it? Because the 5 drivers behind him on the grid haven't had a pole yet this season. In Ogiano, Tom, Rowan, Nikita, and Denurko, interestingly, our championship leader, still without a pole position in this championship so far. So he's kind of spoiled our fun a little bit. But it just goes to prove the point that we said earlier on, that Kazizel, despite not having the result he would have wanted last time out with that penalty, he is definitely a threat for the rest of the championship. And that qualifying session just proves it. He left it very late, but we've seen that all season long, that people that leave it late and spring a surprise at the very end of qualifying are the ones that end up getting pole position, and Kazizel has done it again for the second week in a row. And
Japan is a good track to get pole position in because it's hard to overtake, and the only place you can overtake is towards the end of the last sector, but you never know, things can improve for some of the drivers. We got Kazizel from Ogiano, from Tom in 3rd, Rowan in 4th, Chiquita in 5th, Denurko in 6th, Brot in 7th, Asicome 8th, and we have Rudy, H. Eagle round up your top 10. Ray didn't have a good qualifying session in 11th, but still 2 tenths slower than P1, which is still quite impressive. Jensen in 12th, we have Marcados, Valtis, Namaya, Fabi, Basilio, Fede, Louis. They're separated by 6/10 of a second. Then we have Mish, who did not race their representative lap time in 20th. But before we head to the race, let's have a quick word from our title sponsor, GT Omega. Okay then, welcome back to PSGL PSF1. This is round number 5 of season 31, and we head to Suzuka for the Japanese Grand Prix. We got myself, Jess Ball, and Aidan Carter taking you through the action, and if you've just not seen it, it was Kazizel that took his second pole position in a row. And just a reminder, no formation laps, so we're about to get things underway. We saw in F2 that a lot of people started on the hard compounder tyres, and we will probably expect to see a similar situation here as well. And who's going to get the best of starts as well? Well, to be honest, because he's always hoping for a better start than Mexico. Well, Mexico, you got a tow if you were P3 or P2, but not quite here, so we'll have to wait and see. So, the 5 red lights are coming up on your screen. Round number 5 of the season, it's about to start right now. Let's see who gets the best of start. Pretty even start from both of them, but a really good start from Tom as he goes side by side with the lights up, because it'll heading down towards turn number 1. Then we'll see that most people have opted for the hard compounder tyres. We got Dernerka already side by side with Yakita heading towards the S's section. No major troubles thus far. We got Namaya on the mediums, who's made his way past Philip Valters. We got Ray up to 12 past Marcados. We got a yellow flag somewhere. That is Louis that's had a bit of a spin, unfortunately. He's down into last place, so he must have got tangled somewhere, and so is Brock as well. Brock's had a huge coming together, and he's spun in the gravel trap, and he's down into 19th as well, so not the way he wanted to start his Japanese Grand Prix. Ascomb's dropped down a few positions as well to 9th place, not what he had wanted, but pretty much the top 5 and 6 pretty much stayed as they are. That's Cone trying to go side by side as they make a bit of contact with H Eagle there in the background. Looks like Jensen could take advantage of that as they head past the hairpin now as well. Very much easy to go side by side with these generation of cars. More yellow flags happening in the background. That's Fusilio has had a bit of an off as well, and there's another spinner. That is H Eagle once again. So a lot of people struggling on the opening laps, it seems, in the midfield. But regarding the front lot, it's a top 3 that remains as they are. And we got a VSC deployed.
Yeah, VSC is deployed because it's all much better this time around, held on to the lead, but a great start from Tom from the second row of the grid to get up into second place ahead of Ogiano. That was a really, really good start for the Mercedes man, but unfortunately for his teammate Brock, down to the back of the field. I don't think he's got any damage by the looks of things, and Misha's now spun under the VSC at 130R of all places, so that is another spinner at the start of this race. A lot of drivers struggling with cold tyre temperatures around this track. Fusilio has no front wing at all, so he'll be having to come into the pit lane at the end of this lap. And as per usual, Namaya, the king of the alternate strategy, is one of the only ones that has gone for something different. He's on the medium tyre. He is up quite a few places at the start of this race, but he's now probably going to get stuck in a train of hard runners now. Like you said, it is so difficult to overtake around here that Namaya needed to gain more places than that to make this strategy work. So yeah, because this will hold on for the time being, but behind everybody else really, really struggling to keep it on the road.
Yeah, it is, and to be honest, Japan is one of those tracks where you can spin quite a lot here, so it is to be expected around here, as we got Kazizel still leading, and we're green flag racing. Once again, no drive-through penalties, but we got Fusilio on his way to the pits to serve a new nose, and I think he's going to go onto the medium compounder tyres, so he's going to hope for a safety car to bring him back into this and maybe go onto a different tyre. There's another yellow flag. That is, I believe, Mish that spun once again, so his day has gone from bad to worse. Unfortunately, I won't be too surprised if he goes into the pit lane, but no safety car call for that. I believe it was just a spin, and as I just said, that another spinner, Basilio, on cold tyres, he spun in the S section. I think we're going to have a huge amount of trouble when people go out the pits tonight, because the S's and cold tyres definitely do not mix. But we're part of this race as Rowan is actually a few tenths behind his teammate Ogiano. I wonder if there'll be team orders. I wonder if Gutastano is going to be feeling very nervous right now, or will they be allowing to race? It looks like they are allowing to race at the moment. No DRS activated yet until we get towards 130 yards, so heading towards turn number 1 then. Can Rowan go around the outside? He doesn't think of it yet. He's staying behind his teammate. I think a lot of drivers are saving a bit of ERS due to the fact there was a virtual safety car. Danerko only in 5th place, but he's played a long game as well. It is quite a long season, and for some drivers, it doesn't matter if you have an odd result. As long as you're getting points here and then, you could still score very well in the championship and still win the championship as well. So I'm sure it won't matter for Danerko, but he wants that podium place as he's right on the back of Rowan. He could get them very, very soon as well. And this is a huge DRS train, and we saw in F2 it become a huge problem for some of the drivers. I won't be too surprised if we see the same problem here.
Yeah, I would not be surprised, like you say. And with Danerko, I think he's proven the fact that qualifying isn't all that important in a championship like this. It's all about your racecraft and your race speed. That's what gets you these great championship runs, and Danerko proving that once again. He's obviously sitting in 5th place, but as per every race, he will come on strong at the very end, so you can't count him out of a win here tonight. He is definitely going to be a major threat in this race. I'm just looking back to Nemaya on those medium compound tyres, and already he is struggling to keep up with the hard runners in front, which suggests to me that the medium tyre is not looking like that good of a race tyre if he's already dropping back from the hard compound runners in front. So he's going to be potentially in a whole spot of bother later on in this race, and he could be falling further and further down the field if that is the case. DRS is now enabled for the first time, and yet again Rowan is much closer to the back of Oggiano than anybody else is in this train. Is Oggiano going to let his teammate go here down the inside, but Rowan's going to stick his nose in. He's going to be side by side through turn 1. They run side by side, they make a bit of wheel to wheel contact, and they just about get away with it. No, they don't. Oggiano spun on the re-entry to the track. He has gone around, and that is not what Haas needed at all. Rowan's gone for the move. Oggiano spun after the contact, and Oggiano from a potential podium position now down to 15th position, and that is going to be a lot of sour. That's going to be a big sour taste in the mouth for Oggiano there. He is not going to be happy that it was his teammate that caused him to spin.
That reminds me of Senna and Prost many moons ago. I hope we don't get a repeat of that tonight, and boom, we had a repeat. So that's my first commentator's curse of the night as well. Oof. But as we're seeing, I think Danerko trying to take advantage of Rowan's issues earlier on. See if he could go side by side into the hairpin of all places. They go down the hill as they head towards Spoon Curve very, very soon. And Danerko loves to take risks in this race, doesn't he? He's got less ERS though compared to Rowan, but that's not phasing him as we speak. Chiquita's had a good race so far, up into 5th position, but again, not quite enough to close on to these guys at the moment. But we'll see if any of the guys in at the top 4 able to make the move. 4th position, Rowan's the closest to Tom right now, so he can go for a similar move like we saw with Oggiano earlier on, but hopefully a much better move from him as well. But it's hard to tell whether it's his fault, or I wonder if Oggiano was a bit too unlucky. But obviously it will be up to the stewards if they do decide to report it to the stewards. Nobody is making the move yet in towards turn number 1. They're saving their ERS deployment. You don't want to be using ERS every lap because it'll be very hard to save ERS around this track, as I found when I did a few laps earlier just to get a feel for the track. So I haven't actually raced around this track. I'm on F1 22, so I had to get a feel for it somehow as well. Ray is up into 9th place at the moment. Not too bad for him, even though he wants to be in the top 5 like he is last week. But there are some tracks which suit his driving style and some tracks that don't, and he's still running solidly in the points. Don't forget he got promoted to F1 last week after a really solid F2 campaign thus far, and to be honest, points in his second race is still pretty good, but surely he would want to aim higher as the season progresses. But it's a long way to go, and you'll be improving a lot just by having a high caliber of drivers being in the same grid as you.
Yeah, exactly, and it's kind of the same thing as what we were talking about with Danerko earlier on in terms of a championship battle. The best way that Ray is going to learn is just getting through these races and getting to the end of them and making sure that he is keeping it on the road and clean. That is the best way to learn in a championship like this one, especially when you're stepping up mid-season. So, yeah, Ray is doing the right thing at the moment. He's already proved himself worthy of being in this championship with such a strong performance in his debut in Mexico last time out. So we've got another yellow flag. That is Fusilio that has spun yet again in that S section, so he is having a really rough time of it at the moment. At the back of the field, Brock is just starting his recovery back through the field after his spin, and is going to pass H. Eagle on the run into 130. Oh, that's a lovely move for the Mercedes driver, but H. Eagle's going to try and force the issue again into the Casio triangle. Isn't close enough on the brakes to do so, so Brock is up into 17th place and continuing his fight back through the field. Then as at the front of the field, Tom getting closer and closer, but not wanting to go for the move as of yet. And in neither Kazizel pushing nor Tom wanting to go for the move, they are both sitting very comfortably ERS-wise. I mean, Kazizel is above 90 whilst leading the race, which means he is not pushing at all at the moment, is that McLaren driver. Whereas Rowan and Denurko behind, interestingly, have used more than the two leaders. So Kazizel and Tom may be saving something at the moment.
Yeah, they are. It's not going to be that long until these drivers come in to the pits from likes of Namaya and me, so they're probably wanting to cover Namaya at least potentially as well. And don't forget, these hards can go a little bit longer in this race. These hards are a very good race tyre on the F122 game, as Markados has had a spin through the second Dugna there. And I did say that he wants to be involved in less incidents, and you're not going to do that by spinning, my friend. So he's down in 18th position. But yeah, I've driven the hards around here, and it felt very, very nice to drive around it, actually. And it has a lot of grip. The hards can last about 20 laps around here. So if there's a late safety car, for example, they can stretch these a little bit longer if Namaya started on the means, for example. And in this case as well, the hards can pretty much, if they want to extend it to go onto the mediums a little bit later to pray for a late safety car, we can as well. But we will potentially see some early undercuts for some of these drivers. But we did see the likes of, I think it was Denurko, who went for a late undercut, and it paid off for him. Well, an overcut, actually, and it paid off for him last week. But for some people that didn't stay out for as long as we would have hoped, well, they could have challenged Denurko for the win, but unfortunately did not pay off. So I wonder what we will see today. Let's have a look at positions gained, actually, from the drivers. We've got Ogiana that's dropped down the most, down 12, as H Eagle goes in into the pits. Biggest gainer, not by much though, is Namaya and Fede up 5 positions. Jensen is up 4, so he's having a better race so far, as we got another yellow flag. I believe that's a Williams. That's just spun before, I don't know where he spun, actually, through the hairpin, I think it looked like. So a bit of a shame that actually is through spoon, actually, it looks like. It's quite similar anyway. So I won't be surprised if he goes into the pits and calls it quits. But you shouldn't really give up in times like this, because like we said, there could be a late safety car. But biggest gainers got to be Namaya and Fede. Biggest losers, Ogiano. But fair play to Rudy as well, up 3, as well as Philip Valters. Ray up 2. And quite a few people have either gained position or stayed where they are. Jakita, for example, pretty much held the position since lap 1. So, but I'm quite surprised he's not challenging for the move yet. But again, he's waiting for the time comes. You don't want to push this early, this soon.
Yeah, you don't want to push too early right now, especially when you're in a train like this. There's not really much point really in wasting any of your ERS and pushing that hard, because you're not really going to go anywhere with it. I think a great example of pushing too hard under a train like this is obviously the two Hasses coming together. That is not what they needed at all, manufacturers-wise. Further down, Ogiana, though, speaking of Hasses, is continuing his recovery through the field and is past Fede and up into 13th place. So the train has split at Fabi in 12th position at the moment. So it's the top 11 that are all in the train as it stands. Fabi is the first driver that just lost DRS the previous time around, but is trying to subtly work his way back into it on this lap. So that is just where the pace is starting to split up just that little bit in this field. Interesting move there from H Eagle, though, to come into the pit lane. I don't think he changed his front wing. He's just pitted for a set of medium compound tyres at the end of lap 7. So he's coming very early for a stop onto the medium compound tyres. And like you were saying earlier on about the hards being a good tyre around this track, I think that is plain and simply because there are so many corners that come at you so thick and fast around this track that it heats the tyres up quite nicely. It makes the hard tyres a nice race tyre, but anything that is softer than a hard tyre, they can probably overheat very quickly around here, which is probably why the hard is the favoured race tyre around this circuit. I'm still keeping my eye on Tom, though, because you can just tell by the body language of the car and how he is driving that he is not pushing at all. He is just sitting comfortably, waiting for the right moment. And again, proving that point is Fusilio at the moment down with no ERS on 6 lap old mediums that he's spun on at least 4 times already, still setting fastest laps and faster than the leaders.
That is interesting as well. He definitely wants a little bit of glory. Fair play to him for keeping going. And saying that, as we just talked about him, he spun again in towards turn number 1, and he's going to get lapped soon by the leaders, which is not a happy sight, to say the least. But to be honest, we will see what happens, as I think the yellow flag is for him again. So, and Tom will be forced just to back off their battle just a little bit as well. as both of these drivers are taking the curve very nicely, as Fazidio needs to move out the way of these guys. Luckily, the ghosting system is on, so no matter what happens, if you do get lapped, then ideally you have to move out the way, but it won't interfere with the drivers too much. It can distract the drivers, as I found out when I was lapping someone the other day on Friday at a track. I think it was Austria, I believe, as well, which kind of confused me a little bit there as well, which is why the yellow flag is still there, unfortunately, at the moment, as Rowan's still in third position at the moment, Danerko in fourth, Chiquita fifth, Rudy in sixth, Azakome in seventh, Jensen in eighth, Ray in ninth, and the Maya, they count your top 10 points positions. We'll keep an eye on the Maya actually as well, because he will have to pit in a few laps time for a set of the hard compounder tyres. They can stretch to lap 15, these mediums, but ideally you want to pit on lap 12 for a set of the hard tyres, because otherwise then what's the point of being on the mediums where you could have been on a hard to medium strategy, no problem, from as early as lap 13, 14. So again, we'll have to wait and see. But don't forget, make sure you check out our title sponsor, GT Omega, where you can get 5% off GT Omega products by clicking the link in the description. And we're also sponsored by Grid Rival, and the Belgian Grand Prix is coming up very soon. We're back into racing in real life, so if you want to get predicting in our F1 2022 Fantasy League with Grid Rival, check the link in the description. As Tom still closing in just a little bit, but again using less ERS than normal. So is Warren, so is Danerko as well. It looks like they're taking it a little bit cautious. They want to get to the end of this race, and they don't want to get involved in too many skirmishes at this moment in time as well. Same with Chiquita. I'm seeing if anyone else is low on ERS. I think one of the only ones who's low on ERS is Jensen, trying to chase down Azakome as well. So I wonder if he's pushing just a little bit too much, and that's allowing Azakome to close in a little bit. Another yellow flag there for Williams once again, but I think that's Fazidio that's out of the race, so he's retired in the pit lane. Not too surprised there.
Yeah, not too surprised it's the lap down. I think the race for him was pretty much over from that point onwards. And yeah, I think Jensen is the one that is really starting to struggle now on the hard compound tyres in this train. He's using up a lot of ERS just to try and keep up with Azakome in front of him, and he's kind of dropping back just that little bit. He's teetering on the edge of losing DRS and is under pressure now from Ray and the other McLaren, and Namaya as well. These medium compound tyres are just starting to fade away now for the Aston Martin, so he's dropping off the back, and that is going to hold up Philip Walters and Fabi as well. We've got that yellow flag all the way across the track pretty much for Fusilo's car coming out of the pit lane. Jensen is now derating on the run down towards 130R, so he's going to have to make sure he doesn't make a mistake into the braking zone of the Casio Triangle. He will keep DRS this time around, but Ray with so much more ERS could be that much faster in a straight line. He could just breeze past despite the DRS advantage that Jensen has in defending. We'll see on board with the McLaren as he runs down towards turn number 1. You can see Jensen derating. I think Ray's sniffed an opportunity here to get up a position in this field. He's going to go down the inside, and there's nothing really Jensen can do about this one. He's got no ERS to defend with, and even in a DRS train, Ray so much faster in a straight line because of that derating for the Alpine. Jensen down to 9th and Ray up into 8th.
There we go, so Ray is secretly making up a few positions, quietly flowing under the radar at the moment, but sometimes under the radar is usually the best place to be in a race, because no one expects you to be up there, and when they see you behind them, they're thinking, uh-oh, I really need to push, and they may push too much, and they may go into a spin. So P8 is a decent position for the McLaren driver at the moment, and we will look actually at the constructors as well, because obviously with Ray scoring points last week, and that will push McLaren up a few places in the constructors as well, but we will go through that in a little bit more detail later on as well, because we do know that the constructors championship is also highly sought after as well. It's not just the drivers. Obviously they pick their teammates at the start of the season because they want to work together, and it is Danerko with the championship lead that he's got. He's leading the constructors with his teammate Mish, but I think that's all really on Danerko. Apart from round 2 though, where Mish has scored some points, and speaking of Mish, he's gone into a spin to Dunlop there, so not quite his afternoon, no damage though, so he's able to keep going. Mercedes are currently sitting in P2 in the championship, and we got Tom in P2 on the road as we got Fabian Olgiano having a little bit of a ding-dong bounce. Olgiano's gone into a spin once again. Unfortunately, you have to go to the pits. He almost got lost there going through the Casio Triangle, which is a bit of a shame. I was surprised he didn't cause a safety car, but he's going to go in. Not quite the timing he wants to go in, but he could potentially go on to the medium commander tyres. No, he doesn't. He also retires from the pit lane, so that makes it 2 retirements so far. No major instance for retirement, just retiring from the pit lane, but It's important that you do not give up. Namaya, on the other hand, goes into the pit lane for his one and only stop. He started on the mediums, don't forget, and he's now onto the hard tyres, which should get to the end. Fabi, interestingly, he's pitting now for a set of the medium compounded tyres. Now, the mediums only last 15 laps, and I'm trying to see and do my maths if they can get to the end. I think they could just about, but he'll pray for a late safety car to do the trick as well, as another yellow flag in set to 1. So I think there's some probably the issues with, oh yeah, it's Oggiano's car that had a bit of an issue there as well, which may put a few people off from going on to the move. So not going to be that long, Aidan, before people make their first pit stops, and the Maya has just triggered the first one, and I believe everyone that started on the mediums has pitted.
Yeah, they have done so now, like you say, and yeah, no matter onto those hard compound tyres. But we've seen it so many times already this season that one driver tries to pit early to try and force everybody else into making a stop, but that driver suffers horribly at the end of the race with just too much tyre wear. So I think people are trying to trick drivers into coming in early, and one of those that is coming in early is Dinerco, interestingly, from P4. So he's doing the complete opposite of what we saw from Dinerco last time out, where he was the one that stayed out the longest and then came in at the end and had the pace. He's coming in early to try and undercut the leaders here. So that is a little bit of a different strategy. Brock has followed them in as well. And interestingly, on that lap, Philip Wouters was the fastest driver on the track, down in 9th place at the back of the train. So again, proving, I think, that the drivers at the front of the train aren't pushing that hard. I wonder now, with that pit stop from Dinerco, are the leaders now going to start to push just that little bit more and pit now to cover off Dinerco? Or are they going to do what Dinerco did to them last week and go long and see if they have the better tyres at the end of the race?
I wonder if they learnt their lessons from last week, potentially. I've watched a bit of the race last week and saw what Dinerco does, because they got ERS to use in between now and the pit stop, so they really can be using it now just to try and get the best in lap they can. And Cazizzo's got the advantage of the cleaner air, so he could be the one that could get ahead of Dinerco potentially as well. But you don't really want to be in a fight too much, because that is when Dinerco could take the advantage. So Dinerco at the moment has got some clear air in front of him, 4.8 seconds between himself and Markados as well. And to be honest, he didn't want to come out ahead of traffic, but that's good news that he's not. So we'll see if any of the likes of Cazizzo and Tom will go in as well. Luckily, all the top 4 all in different teams, so they can come in at the same time. Obviously, we got the Haas and the Williams of Oggiano and Vasilio out of the race anyway. The top 4 staying out, so is Rudy, so is Asacombe, Ray as well, Jensen, Valters, Fede, and we'll see what Markados could do, but majority of people staying out, so we may see the opposite to what we saw last week. But will it pay off as Valters gets the move in towards T1 past Jensen there? Nicely does it from him. Carly Sig in P8. Only one driver to receive a time penalty at this moment in time, and that is Mish down in 18th position. Everyone else has kept it penalty free, but I wonder we see people on 2-1 is for now as Fabi sets fast lap. Now it is Louis that sets fast lap. Don't forget Louis started near the back of the grid, leads up into P14 and still running in a decent position, but again he would have probably wanted better things from this race. We'll keep an eye on the top 2 sector times as well to see if it compares to the likes of Dinerco on his in-lap as well. As you can see, Cazizzo is using a lot more ERS than he was in the last lap. So is Tom, so is Rowan, and Chiquita is using even more. So they are definitely pushing, like he's saying.
Yeah, they're starting to push a little bit more now, trying to up the pace a little bit on these hard compound tyres to try and limit the undercut effect that Dinerco is going to have on them. But Dinerco is absolutely flying in the first sector. That is a rapid first sector, nearly a second up on his best in the first part of the lap already. So Dinerco flying on those medium compound tyres. And like we said last time out, if you're going to go for this strategy, if these leaders are going to stay out, they've got to stay out for a few laps longer. They can't pit now. Only a 2 laps difference between the tyres isn't going to be enough. But as I say that, Cazizzo from the lead is in. So Cazizzo from the lead at the end of lap 14 comes into the pit lane. I don't think that's enough of a tyre difference to make the difference with Dinerco at this point in the race. So he could be setting himself up to just be sat behind the Ferrari driver for the rest of this race. That's going to be potentially a bit that could really affect his race, unfortunately. So we'll wait and see where Dinerco is in relation to these leaders as he comes down the pit straight at 31 flat, comfortably the fastest lap of the race. Crosses through comes down towards turn 1, and there you go. He is ahead of Cazizzo out of the pit lane before Cazizzo's even warmed their tyres up. So Dinerco has now got about a lap to just try and build a gap to our net race leader. Dinerco with that undercut is now in the net race lead. Has he got the tyres though to hold on to the end of this race? And how long will those that have stayed out on the hard compound tyres now go for? Will they go a little bit longer in this race just for that extra tyre advantage?
We'll have to wait and see. I think Daneco really put the pressure on the other drivers, and it's definitely paying off. But don't forget, his medium tyres will wear off a little bit more compared to the likes of Kazizel, Chiquita, Asako, Valdes and Jensen, who have all come in to the pit lane. And the danger is, with the top 4 potentially staying out, they could come out behind these guys as Fabi and Jensen going side by side in into the hairpin now. And luckily Fabi covers off Jensen, or maybe not, Jensen with the switchback. And what a great move here as well, but Fabi right on the back of this as well. That could power as well. There's a lot of people making more moves now as they just made their pit stops. Don't forget, Jensen is on much cooler tyres compared to Fabi. So Fabi was expected to go for the move actually, but just like you were saying earlier, the tyres tend to warm up a lot quicker in Japan, as we've got everybody on the top 5 that is coming in. Marcos, I think, will come in soon as well. So we'll see where Daneco is. I think he's going to be comfortably ahead as well, but it's not helping him that he's got Marcos right in front of him, which may help the likes of Tom a little bit here. We'll see as Marcos lets Daneco through, heading towards T1. So, I think Daneco is comfortably ahead. Daneco is comfortably ahead, so is Kazizel then. So, both Kazizel and Daneco with the undercuts has helped them. But with the likes of Tom, who was a net P2, well, he's only a net P3 right now as well, which is a bit of a shame. But we'll see if his tyres come alive towards the end. It is not over for Tom, as we got a yellow flag. That is an AlphaTauri. That is Fedder has had a bit of a spin in the S's there, so his race has not gone good as well, is it? But it just shows that it is the undercut that works here rather than the overcut, and Daneco leads his race because it all gets past Marcos for P2.
Yeah, gets past Marcos. Marcos trying to fight back on the exit, but doesn't have the tyre grip to be able to pull that one off. So, yeah, it looks like it's just going to be a straight fight now between Daneco and Kazizel, I think, for the win of this race. But yet again, strategy-wise and racecraft-wise, Daneco seems to be catching these out napping, doesn't he? He doesn't really play that much of a factor in the first half of a race, and then in the second half, he just comes alive and catches everybody napping, and that looks like it could potentially be the case. He's gone from 4th to 1st in just a few laps because of this strategy call. So, really, really smart decision there from Daneco to get into the pit lane a little bit earlier than everybody else, especially considering now that the only major tyre advantage that we've got really in this field is Tom, but Tom is going to be 3rd in this train, and only 3 laps difference between a set of medium compound tyres is not that big. So Daneco looking very, very good at this point in the races. Here comes Tom down the pit straight. Marcos in front has got DRS and is defending the move. Tom's going to try and go around the outside and then force the issue up the inside of turn number 2. There's a little bit of rubbing between the two of them, but Tom gets the move done. Marcos down to 4th position. I think Marcos is just staying out, hoping for some sort of safety car at this point in the race to bring him into contention. But Tom now up into 3rd, and crucially what Marcos is doing is splitting up this lead train that bit more, so they're all starting to fan out a little bit. There's not really a DRS train forming, and yeah, Marcos is splitting them up because of it. Rowan will be the next one to have a go, you would imagine, into the hairpin, who will have a go at the Red Bull driver, but he is losing a little bit more time to the drivers in front just by staying in behind. And now we've got a yellow flag for Mishu's moving out the way. Rowan's going to get the move done. I don't know though if that was in the yellow flag zone or not.
I don't know. So I wonder if it could be an illegal overtake, but again, we'll have to wait and see at this moment in time. But the yellow flag was by the hairpin. It was by the hairpin, and that was where Rowan was trying to get the move. And that, there we go. 5-second time penalty for ignoring yellow flag. So he did get an illegal overtake there. So much easier to do. You can lose concentration, not know that there's a yellow flag, and you're thinking, right, I could get the overtake done, but then forget that there's a yellow flag in store. So Rowan, well, he's definitely not going to get that removed because the yellow flag was clearly there. It was clearly visible. It was clearly visible on our screen as well. So that will have to be served. There is a safety car that will have to be served in his next pit stop, or will be added on to the end of the race. So that answers our question. Did he get a penalty for that? Yes, he did. Meanwhile, Chiquita's looking like he's going to get past Marcos now into 5th position. But Marcos is definitely trying to defend this, isn't he? Don't forget the hards could last 20 laps. I wonder if Marcos is going on for the soft tyres. But like he's saying, the more softer the tyre is, the less grip you'll have towards the end of the race. We got a retirement of Mish, and he was a lap down anyway. So again, not really that surprising. Again, he's retired from the pit lane. So we're down 3 drivers, 1 Ferrari driver, 1 Haas and 1 Williams. So 70 drivers still have a realistic shot of winning the race. H. Eagle and Fede, not as much as the other drivers, but you never know. There could be a late safety car, and that's what Marcos is definitely hoping right now.
Yeah, he's definitely hoping for a late safety car. Like you say, he's just hoping something comes out so that when he comes into the pit, he doesn't lose that much time and is still in the running for potentially some points. But at the moment, it is not paying off. We're not seeing, unfortunately for him, that safety car at the moment. Yukita, stuck behind the Red Bull, though, is losing touch with his top four very, very quickly. The good thing for Yukita, though, is he's got pretty much a guaranteed fourth place at the moment, in advantage over Rowan because of that penalty. And there you go. Yukita's not going to wait for the DRS. He's going to go for the move into 130R, gets the move done, and is through up into 5th position. And Rudy's going to try and make it 2 places lost in 2 corners for the Red Bull driver down the inside of the Casio triangle. TF Rudy down the inside is going to go round the outside of the second part. Markados has no grip to fight it, and now he's basically moving out of the way of Asacombe. Ray's not going to be too far behind as well. Those hard tyres are completely finished on that Red Bull car, so he's going to have to hope for a safety car in the next lap or so. Otherwise, he's potentially running at risk of crashing that car because he is all over the road at the moment on those hard compound tyres. Battle for the lead, though. Kazizel has caught up Danurko very quickly. The gap is now down to about 0.3 of a second. Unfortunately, though, Kazizel, in not going for the move straight away, is allowing Danurko to rebuild that ERS battery that he didn't have. Danurko was derating a few laps ago. He's now managed to build up some sort of defence against Kazizel now. So I wonder whether Kazizel needed to get the move done straight away so that Danurko didn't have that opportunity.
Yes, and to be honest, you don't really want to be really in a fight for too long, because there could be a situation where Danurko could just get out of the DRS, and that could be race win and race victory over. So I wonder if the guys behind are fighting for best DRS at this point. And I think the guys behind are getting a little bit frustrated that they just can't get past Kazizel at this point, because they know they could challenge for P1 of this race. And we know Tom is a quick driver on this game, but just hasn't shown his consistency. Same with Rowan, of course, as well. Don't forget, Rowan missed last week's race, but he is back ready to roll as Kazizel has caught up a little bit to Danurko in the final sector. So I wonder if he set up his gear to more of the final set and more of the straight line speed then. So right on board with Kazizel now. Is he going to take advantage here? If I was him, I would use overtake. And guess what? He's definitely going to use overtake right now. He's got DRS as well. Is he going to move to the right hand side? No, Danurko covers him off there ever so slightly there as we head towards the S section as well. And there's less dirty air on these cars now, so you can get as close as you want to around the S's without going into too much of a spin there. As Tom not closing up, unfortunately, but Rowan doing ever so well to keep up with these guys. But yet again, he's going to drop down to, I think, at least 7th position or even 8th position due to that penalty, unfortunately. But he's still going to give it a good go, just have a little bit of a fine. Hopefully there's no more yellow flags to plague him a little bit there. I've just seen another battle as Valters has got past Markados now, up to 9th, and he's now going to chase down Ray for 8th position. So we've got one Ferrari, one McLaren, one Mercedes, one Haas, one Williams, one Alpine, one AlphaTauri. So we've got 2 McLarens in the top 8. Then we got an Alfa Romeo and a Red Bull. So I think the only team not in the top 10 is an Aston Martin. So they're not doing as well in 30th and 50th. Obviously, the medium to hard strategy did not go quite as well for the Meyer, didn't it? He's down in 15th place and not going to score any points thus far.
Yeah, that strategy's not worked, and every time the Meyer's gone for that alternate strategy, it's not worked this season at all. I'm just on board with Asacombe, who's right on the back of Rudy here for a run into the Casio triangle, but Rudy not really leaving enough space there for Asacombe to have a look around the outside, and Asacombe has to kind of half drift on the grass to avoid a major collision there and gets away with it. So Asacombe still in 7th position at the moment. Another one of those races where a poor qualifying for Asacombe by ways of his pace has put him out of position. He's had to try and fight back through the field, but at a track like at Suzuka, it's so difficult to fight your way through these trains, and Asacombe is just stuck at the moment in 7th place. You can definitely tell he's faster than some of the drivers in front, but can't do anything about it because of the nature of this circuit. So Asacombe a little bit out of position at the moment in 7th place. And again, Asacombe is the closest driver at the moment to Danurko in the championship. Danurko leads, Asacombe in 7th is only going to further extend Danurko's championship lead in this early phase. And Danurko is, at the moment, really establishing himself as the championship favourite right now, with what could potentially be 3 wins on the bounce if he can hold on to this. And this will be the first time since round 2 that Asacombe is not on the podium. So, yeah, this could be definitely a big turning point in this championship. Tom, though, you can tell in 3rd, really wants Kazizel to get a move on, because Tom is all over the back of that McLaren and just cannot find a way through at the moment.
Don't forget, they are Shazoo teammates, of course, but they are in different constructors as well, so they've got their own battle. So I wonder if the 2 Shazoo teammates are in a party together, maybe thinking of strategy. What can I do, says Tom, to try and close in on Dernurka potentially. But don't forget, Kazidl has a place in this championship too. Tom has got a lot to live up to as well, with a few mistakes this season. He seems to be making more mistakes than quite a few drivers as well. Been involved in quite a few last few lap spins. Most of the races he was set on to either win or get a podium. But I think the only time he got that podium was in Belgium, where he got a P3 and he also got the fastest lap. He hasn't got a podium since then. He did score 1 point, which was in round number 4. He didn't score any points in Miami, and he scored only 3 points in Austria, the opening round of the season. But Tom is just minding his own business right now, and to be fair, I think he's pushing the most, because out of all the people in the top 3, he's got the one with the least ERS. His H-Eagle is out of this race, and is another retiree from the pit lane. So I'm guessing he had a bad race that he wanted to call it quits, which is a bit of a shame. So that's another Ferrari-powered car out of proceedings, which is unfortunate. And yeah, he did pit on a soft, which was a pure indication as to he was going to give up there, unfortunately. But yeah, it looks like this could be a close battle for the end of this race. If it was any track like Belgium, Brazil, for example, Monza, where we're going to next week, if they're that close enough, they could go for the move, but it's just so hard to overtake. They can't go for the move yet, but we'll see what any of these drivers can do. All it takes is for one driver to make a mistake, and that will bring everybody else, including yourself, into contention. And if you are Dernurka, you do not want to be the one making a mistake, because it's always even closer to Dernurka this lap than any other lap. He's probably been saving his ERS deployment for right now. So let's see what he could do then. Dernurka is responding to him because he's pretty much closing the door, as it seems, heading towards turn number 1. Can Kazidl go to the right hand side into T1? Oh, they make a bit of contact again, on my screen at least, as well, as Rudy goes side by side with Chiquita there in towards turn number 1. We also got Ascombe and Ray going, not Ascombe, yeah, Ascombe and it was Rudy actually. It was hard to tell. Oh, it was Ray. Or it might be the Williams driver actually. Oh, Ascombe and Chiquita. So many cars that have blue on them. It's just very confusing. But Ascombe was going side by side with Chiquita there. Chiquita stayed in 6th. Ascombe has also picked up a time penalty, and he's down to 7th, but he will drop down a few positions, I think. He may get outside the points if he's not careful. Lap 23 of lap 27. Who will be the one who pick up this race for him? Dernurka not dominating as he once was in the race last week, but as it stands, he's making sure he keeps the gap as well. But look at Rowan actually. He's going to try and go for the move, heading towards Spoon, past Tom now. He's got to get past Tom soon because he's got to clear that 5-second penalty, and this is one of the advantages that Rowan has got. That's not what Tom needs, unfortunately, as well. But can Tom fight back here, heading towards 130? I wonder if Rowan was just saving it for the moment as well, and knowing that obviously Rowan could be faster than Kazidl. We've got Chiquita going side by side with Ascombe once more. Again, Ascombe closes once more. Looks like it seems to be heating up towards the end of the race. I think most people have been saving ERS. Apart from Chiquita, we had Kazidl has gone into a spin. He was running P2, and now he's down into P5. What a shame for a pole sitter.
That is such a crucial mistake, just dropping it on traction through the final corner. He's managed to keep out the wall and keep going, but down to 5th now. That is such a shame for Kazidl, who was staring potentially at first win of the season, but that's pretty much gone out the window now unless we have some carnage in his final few laps. Rudy now on for a podium with that, so Rudy's really stepped up his game in these last couple of laps, getting that move done on Nikita, and of course a few laps ago as well, having to defend from Ascombe as well. He's really put himself into contention now in that 4th position. But yeah, I'm surprised by Rowan going for the move on Tom there. Considering the 5-second penalty, I don't think passing Tom's going to make any difference. If anything, it's just going to hinder Tom more than anything else. So Rowan here clearly wanted to potentially win on track and see if he could get that penalty removed. But like you said, I don't think that is going to be the case, considering it was a very clear yellow flag. So I think he's trying his luck. He at least wants to win this race on track, see if he can get anything from it. But I don't think that is going to be the case. Yeah, and now we look at Tom. Tom is now the one man that can maybe deny Dernurka this race victory today, and you're going to have to rely really on Rowan getting his elbows out for Tom to win this race now, because Tom is 3rd in this train. So we'll see what Rowan can do. If Rowan can spring a surprise on Dernurka and go for the lead of this race, Tom's going to have to be right there ready to pounce and get past Dernurka at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder if Tom's going to follow Rowan in just a few moments. Tom Robbo currently sitting in P7 in the standings on 15 points. And then we've got the likes of Rowan just ahead on 16 points as well, but he is leading that on countback in P5, so doing a much better job as Asako had got past Raider up to 6th. Can he challenge Cazidle for 5th? Tom had a little bit of a squirm there through the S section, so one of his tyres is overheating a little bit, but don't forget, Danerco's tyres were on 12 lap tyres. It's going to be not long before the tyres start to degrade a little bit, and the fresher tyres of Tom's and Rowan's start to come to its own. Same with Rudy's as well. We thought that there would be not much difference. Could be going into a difference as Rowan is really starting to push potentially as well. And if Tom doesn't get the move done on Danerco, then he's probably going to be a little bit hard dumbed, unfortunately. But maybe Rudy can maybe spring a surprise as well. Maybe Ray as well. I know he's down in P7, but who says a man who doesn't win from P7? There could be a lot of people that make a mistake. There could be a pile up, and hey, Ray could go on and win this race. Meanwhile, Valters getting past Chiquita there up into P8. He's having a solid race down in P8 at the moment. Obviously, he scored 3 points last week as well, so he's going to get 3 points again this week. I think he'll probably get even higher. He'll probably get maybe 6th place or even 5th place due to the penalties from Rowan and Asako. So Valters having a solid day in the office so far, but both Rowan and Tom using up most of their ERS to try and close in on Danerco. You can see that Danerco's tyres are not the best condition right now, and he's under huge pressure. Here comes Rowan then, penultimate lap of this race. Rowan's going to try and fend off Danerco. Danerco comes off to the right, and look at that defence from Danerco. That is absolutely incredible from the Ferrari driver, and this is why he was a championship contender last season, and this is why Danerco is leading the championship right now in PSGL PSF1, and this is why he is a force to be reckoned with on the PlayStation tier at the moment. And Rowan and Tom have got to respond. Tom has fallen back from Rowan, so on track at least it's between Danerco and Rowan for the race win. But I wonder if Tom is just fighting for P2 at the moment, because Rudy is right on the back of this as well, so bring it on. And I wonder if Danerco's not going to fight this one too much because of Rowan's penalty, but we'll see. As Rowan trying to go around the outside of Danerco into the hairpin there, couldn't quite work. He could get the switchback coming up soon, heading towards Spoon. He's got a less DRS compared to the two of them. Danerco's just in pretty on 33%, so maybe Rowan could just let this one go. But I know Danerco. Danerco wants to win this one on track.
Yeah, he'll want to win it on track, like you say, but Rowan's got so much more grip at this point in the race. This is what Danerco needed, though, is he saved up so much ERS when Cazidle was behind him. It's helping him defend at this point in the race as we come onto the final lap. And look at them through 130R. So close. Rowan going to try and go the long way round the outside. He's outbraking Danerco there. That is a lovely move. But Danerco's going to get the switchback. Which one of these two got the DRS, though? Down the pit straight, it is going to be Rowan that's going to get it. Danerco's not got it. Is Tom going to be close enough to try and capitalise on this? Then he's using all of his ERS down the pit straight. He's going to try and cut to the inside line of Danerco for the net lead. But Danerco's going to leave him the space. They're still side by side through turn 2. There's a bit of contact between the pair of them. But Tom, crucially, looks like he's going to get the move done. Yes, he is. Really smart driving there from Tom. He used the battle between Rowan and Danerco to find a way through, and Tom is now in the net lead of this race. All he's got to do now is hang on to it for the final lap, and Tom could secure his first race win of the season.
That'll be amazing, won't it? Don't forget, he is a PSGL PSF2 champion from last season. Won 6 races on the bounce last season, won 7 races in total. So he was looking quite dominant in F2 last season, and he could be a threat for the title this season. And he played that strategy to perfection, to be honest. And to be honest, he didn't really want to be fighting Danerco with Rowan. Danerco probably would have just let Rowan pass and just make sure you hold the gap. That's what I would have done. But maybe Danerco wasn't thinking straight potentially as well. Maybe he's thinking a long game of the championship, because he still will be leading, I believe, the championship after his 2 wins. So it doesn't matter for him, and he's already dropping back. He's losing a bit of ERS in the process as well, because Cazidle could get Danerco as well. But we will watch Rowan. He will get the race win on track. Tom won't have to fight this too much as they head towards the Casio Triangle for the final time. And Rowan will get the win on track, but it is Tom, your F2 champion from last season, will take his first win in the top division in PSGL PSF1. Danerco, your championship leader, can only manage 2nd. Cazidle 3rd. A good recovery drive, actually, after starting pole and then getting involved into a spin. Rudy in 4th. I think Cazidle got Rudy on the final lap. Ray, what a comeback from him, up to 5th place for another top 5 finish for Ray. He's going to be a threat in this championship. Valton sit Rowan, due to his 5-second penalty, has dropped down to 7th. Ascone can only manage 8th. The first time this season where he hasn't been near the podium positions, which is not good. Jenswood gets point in 9th as well as Fabi. And I'll see if anyone's got the fastest lap outside the top 10. Doesn't look like it. Nope, it belongs to Markados down in 16th place, and he'll be the last man to cross the line. But it is Tom from Dan Urco from Kazizel, and because of that, it was a 1.5 second gap in the end over Tom and Dan Urco there. So Tom played it safe, and it just showed that Dan Urco didn't really need to be fighting Rowan that much. He could have just let him through.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. When he was fighting Rowan so hard, it was only putting Tom closer to the back of them. So like you say, if he just let Rowan go, he could have pulled himself along, and that could have saved him the win. But either way, a second place is still a good result from Danerco there, and it's another podium to add to his collection for this season. But yeah, great result from Tom. That is exactly what Tom needed, I think, to reignite his season after what's been not the best start to the season for him. He's had the pace, but not the results, and finally he's got the result to go with it as well. And like you say, again, Ray, second race of the championship for him in this division, and again another top 5. A little bit, not really much of a showmanship of a race from him. He was very understated the whole way through that race, but still managed to pick up a top 5 finish and had a really, really good result. And that just proving that he is fully worthy of the top division of PSGL F1. That is another great drive from the McLaren driver. And yeah, lucky for Kazizel, I think, to maintain a podium after that mistake, but he'll be gutted. I think that was his race to lose.
Yeah, definitely. But for Ray's case, it's not about where you start. It's not about where you are in the middle. It is where you finish. And he finished quite nicely after starting 11th. So he's one of my contenders for Drive of the Day. Valve has performed quite well as well, starting 14th to finish 6th. So he impressed me as well. Rudy just missed out on the podium. What could have been for him? But again, an impressive performance from him. But let's go run through your results then. Your provisional results, of course, because we could see some incidents reported by the stewards. I don't think there will be many incidents by the stewards this week because it was a pretty clean race from PSGL PSF1 standards, so well done to you guys. So we got Tom, who wins his first race from Dan Urco, from Kazizel, Rudy, Ray, Valters, Rowan, Asacombe, Jensen, and Fabi. Round up your top 10, and then we got Brock, Chiquita, Namaya, Louis, Markados, your final finishers. Fede retired on the final lap, and we got H. Eagle, Mish, Orgiano, and Basilio making your final retirements. Unfortunately, only about 5 retirements, which is great to see. 15 drivers managed to make it through into the checker flag, and it was quite a decent race. No rain to contend with for our drivers at all, and quite an intense fight for the victory there. And I think I did see a comment in the live chat saying there could be some last lap battles for the race win, and they were right, just like us.
Yeah, they were definitely right, weren't they? They got it in the end. It was definitely correct that they've that was a really, really good end to the race. It was a nice way to finish off that race. Definitely, it was a really, really interesting race from start to finish. It'll be interesting to see what the stewards do say if Rowan is deciding to try and get rid of that 5-second penalty. But I think we're both in agreement, at least, that I don't think that penalty can get removed because of that yellow flag. So we'll see what comes of that one. But yeah, either way, it was still a good race from Rowan despite that. So you can't take away from him that he had a great result. He obviously won it on track. He's not going to get it with the penalty, but that is still a solid result from Rowan as well. So he can at least take some positives away from that race, even if he just still end up in 7th position after that one, after everything is said and done with. But again, even in a poor race by his own standards, Danerco still gets a podium and it further extends his championship lead. So Danerco, just at the moment, you've got to say, is just starting to run away with things.
Yeah, he is. I'm sure he won't mind a P2 because, again, P2 is P2. It's just 1 point shy of the win, and with the championship just so close in terms of points, with the PSGL point system, anything can happen. So, to be honest, he won't be too disheartened. He'll probably go back even stronger in Monza next week. And for the first time in 2 or 3 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, we have interviews, which is believe it or not, something I wouldn't be expect to be saying after so long. But let's bring our race winner into the interview booth, and we've got our first time race winner in the top division, Tom. Tom, can you hear us?
Oh my God! Hello.
Tom, congratulations, your first win in the top division. I'm so used to speaking to you from last season. Wasn't expecting to speak to you this soon. Talk us through those final few laps. Were you expecting to get the race win on that, and what was going through your thought process there?
Well, I mean, Rowan, he caught me off guard going into Spoon, which was it's good from him, to be fair. Obviously, I don't know what happened with his 5 seconds, so, we'll take the win for now. But, yeah, them last few laps, I just knew, I know at the top of my head that Daneko and Rowan are both way more aggressive than I am, and they were both going to really do something on the last lap, so, I took my opportunity and got down the inside of Daneko. But then, yeah, I couldn't get past Rowan even if he had the penalty. And yeah, I'm just, glad that I got the win provisionally.
And even if the 5-second penalty gets removed from Rowan, still a podium finish in the top tier is still an incredible feat as well. After an up and down season, it turned out to be at the moment. She tends to get involved in a little bit of a spins. Tell me what has changed since then to avoid you spinning so much? Because Japan is a very hard track just to keep it on the right lines and even go without spin. What held you to not spin at all in that race and just to keep it clean?
Well, to be fair, in Austria I didn't spin. I got a pen, and then in Miami I spun after I'd already got a pen, so I wasn't going to score any points anyway. Then in Mexico I got spun by one of the Aston Martins, but it wouldn't have benefited me by reporting it, so I just left it. But I mean, I've been fighting towards the podium places in every race, so I'm glad to get my second podium today, whether it be first or second. And yeah, Japan's less of like a penalty prone track. Like, you don't go off very often, so like I only got one more on the whole race instead of instead of getting a pen. But I've been working on trying to get less pens, so it's less spinning. I'd say I don't spin very often, although I literally spun in a practice race earlier today, so
at least it didn't happen in the actual race. So it just shows that people need to practice. Aidan, do you have any questions for Tom?
Monza this time next week for the next round of the championship. How are you feeling about Monza as a circuit?
Well, Monza, I'd say, is probably one of my better tracks, but I know it's a bit dodgy with curbs and that, so it's going to be a bit crazy. But yeah, overall, I think Monza's probably one of my strongest circuits on the calendar. But, at the end of the day, it's all down to, you have to get a bit of luck to go with that. And hopefully, after getting a good result this week, my legs won't be shaking as much next week. So,
You've got the good result out of the way now, so now everything from here on out is nice and smooth sailing. And speaking of moving on from here on out, for the rest of the championship, I think it's fair to say that Daneko is starting to run away with things already, championship-wise. What's your target for the rest of the season now? Do you think you can potentially get up there if Daneko has a few bad results, or is there a different aim?
Obviously, it takes Daneko getting a few bad results, which is going to be a bit difficult. But I want to aim towards like the top three. I know, looking at the championship now, it's all down to consistency. Like, a lot of the quick guys aren't getting a good result every race, so I'm just going to try and do that. Daneko obviously is a bit clear, even when he's like off his own pace in quali, he'll qualify in the top 5. So it's going to be very hard to challenge him, but with a few crashes and a bit of luck my way, maybe I can. But yeah, I mean, I'll be difficult. I'll aim for like the top 3 or something.
That's still a great target to aim for as well for season 31. But yeah, congratulations on your first, provisionally at least, your first win of the season.
Thank you.
And we'll see if there's anyone else that wants to speak to us in the interview room at this moment in time. I'm actually trying to remember who was actually on the podium. I believe Kazizel was on the podium provisionally. Yep. Yes, he was. So we will drag him to the interview room. The last few weeks we hardly had any in the interview room. This time we've got 2. So hopefully Daneko can join us soon. But we've got another Shidoo driver in P3. Finished quite well. Got his second pole position in a row. It's Kazizel. Kazizel, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Because it's all solid job from you. Good job to hold on to the lead into turn one, but unfortunate spin late on in the race. Tell us, how does it feel to get P3? Should you have fought for the win now, or are you happy to get that podium?
Well, to be honest, I'm really disappointed in myself because that mistake was just silly. I was under no stress or no pressure, and I just pushed the overtake on too early. So to be honest, I should be fighting for wins, have the pace to fight for wins, and I should demand better of myself. So until I start getting wins, I'm always going to be like, I know I can do better. But obviously there are positives. Obviously getting pole again, being able to lead in the race for half of it.
Hey.
In F1 is, yeah. I didn't finish in first, but I'll take lead for half of it. But overall, there's loads of positives from it. I just need to put it all together, and then maybe I'll actually be able to get a win.
I have to say, your lap was pretty incredible, and again, the person to leave it down to the wire there, because we weren't expecting it. How did you manage to get your lap together? Because I think you were one of the only drivers to get into the 1:28.1. So were you just comfortable overall? Were there any times around the lap that you could have found some more time, or do you think that was the best you could do?
Well, on my first run, I got blocked, and I knew there was about 2 tenths on the last sector if I didn't get blocked. So I was pretty confident going into it. And when you come off a pole from Mexico, you have the confidence behind you. And I knew to myself, I was thinking, I can definitely get pole here. And there was definitely time on that lap, but I saw what time I was going to do going into the second sector. So I probably lost half a tenth in the last sector by just making sure I didn't invalidate or make a mistake. So, you can always nitpick, I could have done this better, that better. But, when you get pole, you just have to smart your lap at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, you had that spin earlier on. Tell us what was going through your mindset then. What did you have to focus on to try and get as high a result as you can, and maybe try and get that podium position just like you did today?
Yeah, when I spun, I was fuming, actually. I was fuming. And then I think it took Ron in the party to be like, Kai, just get your head together, and you can still go get some good points. So I was like, you know what, let's not have a stop and let's just get on with it. And I think I was 5th on our span, and then I sent it up the inside, I think, of Rudy or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I was P3. So to be honest, I'm happy with myself because I kept myself together, and I made that mistake, but I got straight back on with it. And I love to see progression, because last season I wouldn't have done that. I would have had a strop. So it was really good.
Yeah, I do remember that, actually. You probably got very annoyed in the chat quite a bit, but you definitely seemed to change in attitude on this game, which is great to see, and something that I will probably learn for my races as well when I compete on this game. So, Aidan, any questions for Kazizzle?
I think the first one for me, looking forward for the rest of the championship. Of course, you're obviously new to being a full-time driver. I haven't been a full-time driver for the full season. Neither is your teammate, but both of you have had 2 good races on the bounce now. I guess a good target for you as a team now, potentially as the constructors?
Yeah, 100%. If I think the drive is a little bit too far away now, because I started the championship a bit slow. But, you always got to go for the second best thing, and that is 100% the constructors. So, I'll 100% be going for that, going for podiums and going for race wins.
Yeah, definitely. It's looking like an obtainable target for the McLaren pair. And I'll ask the same question I'll ask earlier as well to Tom. Next time out, Monza. How are you feeling about Monza? How do you feel about that track?
If I'm honest, it's always been a circuit I've actually been quite weak at. It's just it's like Austria for me. No matter how much practice I do, I'm always fine. I'm about a 10th off everyone. So, I obviously do the prep and make sure I'm 100% as prepared as I can be going into it. But at the end of the day, whatever happens, happens. Everyone has their strengths, everyone has their weaknesses. But I will give it my all, that's for sure.
That's exactly what's important. And like Tom said as well, it's one of those tracks that can cause a bit of carnage. So there can be definitely things to capitalise on next week. But congratulations on your 3rd place finish.
Thank you very much, guys.
So it doesn't look like we're going to have Denarco this evening for an interview, but we've heard from Tom and we've heard from Kazizzle, which was great to see as well. But before we go for the wrap-up, Aidan, do you have any final thoughts?
I think just to say again that it was a great race today, a really nice race. Really nice to see these drivers back racing around the Suzuka circuit as well. It is just I've reiterated it I think 1,000 times already, but it is such a favourite circuit of mine. So it is great to see these drivers go around this one. And like Tom said, Monza next time out is going to be a bit of an interesting one. It's obviously a very different track in nature to Suzuka. This one's more about straight line speed and like you said, the curbs are very lethal there as well, and there's not much room for error there. So I think next time out at Monza could be a very interesting race. If not for maybe some close racing, it could be maybe a bit chaotic, which would be a bit of a new dynamic, I would say, for this championship, if that's the case.
Yes, indeed. So make sure you join us next week. But there will be some more PSGL action this week to get your teeth in too. If you are interested, there's going to be Monza action on Wednesday with the PT top tier at Wednesday at 7 p.m. and that'll be commentated by Dan Field and Jack Canaan. And then we've got the lower PT tiers from F2 to F6 with Luke Eckridge and Chris Buxton take you through the PC F2 action. Then we've got the lower PS tiers on Sundays, and then we've got myself and Aidan, as always, covering the PS top tier on Monday nights at 8 p.m. But if you want some more PSGL action before then, we've got some GT7 action, which I believe is around Japan as well. We've got Tier 2, which will be commentated by Luke Eckridge, and then we've got the Tier 1 commentated by Rebo. So if you want to check those out, I believe it's on, can't remember what time, either 7 o'clock, I think it's 8 o'clock tomorrow. So if you want to check those out, make sure you join us on the PSGL channel for some GT7 action. But with myself and Aidan, we will leave you with our sponsors, GT Omega and Grid Rival. Have a good evening, everybody, and good night.
Broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega and Grid Rival, proudly supporting PSGL.